Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1231, 1231, August the 26th, 2020, Wednesday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, here on TowerGate, we talk about the Spygate story. That's the only thing I'm interested in. It's really the only thing I talk about anymore. I used to do other things, but I got tired of it. So now I'm just back to covering the TowerGate Spygate story, the coup on Trump. That's the main thing I'm focused on these days. Obviously, yesterday I did not upload a video. So, by the way, Douglas made some very good, some very good guesses as to why I did not upload a video that day. If you haven't read Douglas's guesses, you should, because they're quite funny, but totally wrong. But very funny anyway. No, to be honest with you, what happened is okay, so basically, I run a company. I don't own the company. I run the company for the owners of the company, but I run the day-to-day operations. And so I kind of have a lot of responsibility there. And our service tech is on vacation, which is where I'm going to be in 2 weeks. But he's on vacation, and so I'm having to cover certain types of service calls. And so I get up on Tuesday morning, I'm having my coffee, all of a sudden I get a text from the owner. He's like, Mike, I hate to tell you this, dude, but we got a service call you need to go to up in Akron. Okay, so Akron's almost 4 hours. It's about 3 hours and 45-minute drive one way. So, you know, I get to work and I make a contact up there and find out, you know, kind of what's going on. I say, okay, well, it's going to take me a few hours to get up there, but anyway, I leave and I get up there. It's probably around 12:30, 1 o'clock. I basically go through just a very quick troubleshoot procedure, and I end up, they had a power outage, to make a long story short. They didn't realize that they have a circuit breaker on the back of the building that resets their system. All they had to do was walk around the back of the building and hit the circuit breaker and reset the system. They didn't know that. I get up there, I'm just doing a basic walk through the system. Okay, power's down. Well, let's go outside. Let me go outside and look at the unit and see if it's, you know, what's going on. It's not running. I walk out there and I look, and there's the freaking circuit breaker, the arm down. I said, I walked over, kicked the arm up, system fires up, and I'm on the road, headed home. 8 hours worth of driving for a 10-minute fix. That's okay. We're going to bill them just the same. And they got to pay me pretty damn good, my friends. Pretty damn good for that one. Okay, so anyway, I get home about, 8 o'clock, 8:30 that night. Screw it, I ain't doing any videos. So that's basically what happened. I had to go on a long-distance service call, and I wasn't in the mood to do a video when I got home. So there you go, Douglas. That's what happened on Tuesday. Now, there will be sometimes when I don't do a video just because there's nothing to talk about, and it just so happened there wasn't that much going on anyway, so we didn't miss anything. But anyway, that's what happened, Douglas. I was not kidnapped by the men in black or anything like that, so it's all good. But anyway, let's talk about a couple things that are going on Spygate-wise. No major revelations, just a couple things I want to focus on. Of course, Carter Page has a new book coming out. He's been out doing some media. And I'll be very interested to take a look at Carter Page's book. I've always found Carter Page to be a frustrating individual to get anything from. He rarely ever really answers questions. He just asks these questions, but he never really actually answers any questions, right? And he's very aloof, and he has been for a long time. And supposedly in this book, he's going to lay it all out. Something tells me the book is going to be very aloof as well. And I'm not saying that I think that Carter Page was part of the plot or anything like that. I don't think he was. Never believed he was or anything like that. But he just, he's a strange guy. I mean, what can I say? I think Carter Page is a strange fellow. And he's a bit aloof. But I'll be interested to see what's in his book. Because he says there's a lot of things that were in the Mueller report that were just not factually accurate. And he says he was never interviewed by, of course, Horowitz when he did the IG report. He says Horowitz never interviewed him. And there's a lot of things in the IG report that Horowitz did that he says are just not true, factually incorrect. So he wants to set the record straight. He does have a couple pending lawsuits, although his three previous lawsuits have all gotten tossed, so he hasn't done very well there. I'm surprised he hasn't sued Kevin Kleinsmith. But regardless, we will see what Carter Page has to say in his book. Because, again, he was on American Thought Leaders, and that's a good interviewer. The guy that does those interviews, he's a good interviewer, and he asked some pretty direct questions, and Carter Page just really doesn't. He never really directly answers your question. He answers another question. He answers some question you didn't ask, but he never actually answers the question you actually ask. So he's a frustrating character for me to watch being interviewed. I never really get anything out of Carter Page. And maybe it's just because that's his background in intelligence, Navy intelligence, working for the CIA, whatever. But, I think he should have come out much earlier and been much more public about things. And I think he probably would have helped himself out. Once he made an overture to Comey personally, on 2 occasions, wrote him letters saying, hey, I'll come in and talk to you. I work for the CIA, whatever. Once he realized that he was being rebuffed, this was a long time ago, and once his name was dropped in October of 2016 in that Yahoo News article, that's when he should have went out and went public and just raised all kinds of hell. He should have been out there raising all kinds of hell and going public. What he was trying to protect, I don't know, because essentially he's outed now as a CIA operative or what have you, and so he's not going to be doing any further work in that area. He's been outed. So, he was blown up back then. I don't know what in the world he sat around for. There's a lot of people that sat around, didn't say anything. Mr. Schrage would be another one of those people. I'm very skeptical of that, So, anyway, we'll look forward to seeing what comes out of Carter Page's book. I don't know what to think, but we'll find out. So, looking forward to seeing that book come out. Probably worth reading, so I'll probably give it a shot, and we'll find out. But he's not really directly answering any questions about it, so you got to buy his book. I understand that. So we will pay attention to that. The next thing I want to bring up here is going back to this. Obviously, there's this big sort of war going on between 2 fairly prominent Spygate people that follow the Spygate story, and have both provided lots of good information. Of course, we'd be talking about Shipwrecked Crew has been kind of at war with Sundance over on Conservative Treehouse. Now, I think we've gotten good information from both, and I think they both are probably in a position, based on what we think we know about them, to give some pretty good observations. And I look at a lot of things. I don't necessarily buy into everything I read. I'm very skeptical. I'm a very skeptical person. I'm very, very skeptical. Let's just put it that way. So I like reading the stuff from Sundance. I like reading the stuff from Shipwrecked Crew, or John Solomon, or Andrew McCarthy, or Joe DeGeneva. I enjoy getting information from all these guys, because they all have backgrounds working for the Department of Justice, U.S. attorneys, and various other things. So their opinion is certainly, I think, worth hearing. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not one of the people that just buy into what anybody says, even if they, have pretty good stature or character or reputation in these areas. I kind of like to come to my own judgments, and it has a lot to do with my gut feelings about things. And so I talk about these things, but I'm very careful to jump in with both feet into anything until I'm sure it's sure, until I'm sure that it's for sure. So anyway, I don't want to get in the middle of a battle between these 2 guys. I don't know what's going on here, but I think it's interesting to point out that in the most recent article that Sundance writes about, where he talks about the fact that he met with Mr. Altenberg, and he describes Altenberg and talks about what he gave to Altenberg. And of course, we've been reading about that from Sundance for months and months and months. He's really tied in this conspiracy that involves James Wolfe leaking the dossier with the SSCI committee, and of course being part of a cover-up with the Mueller investigation, everybody covering everybody to protect the investigation and to protect the coup and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's all very interesting. I think the evidence Sundance lays out is right on. It looks good to me. I think it's definitely something there. to be paid attention to, and I'm glad that he was able to discover Mr. Aldenberg and bring this to his attention. But I think one of the most interesting things to me was, having read that now 3 or 4 times, is that what I did notice is that nowhere does Sundance say a single syllable about anything that Aldenberg told him. And that's probably what would interest me the most, is, what did Aldenberg tell Sundance about the investigation, where the investigation is, or anything like that. But as you can see from the article, if you go back and read it, I have now 3 or 4 times, not a single syllable about anything that Aldenberg told Sundance, which tells me that Aldenberg didn't tell Sundance a single thing. I'm not saying that Sundance didn't ask. I would assume he did. I certainly would have. I certainly would have asked Mr. Aldenberg exactly where things are going and what it looks like at this point, and without having to get too specific, I think I would ask him certain things about, have you looked into this $10,000 drop on Papadopoulos when he was over in the Mediterranean? It sort of looked like a frame up there. Do you have any more insight as to who may have put Mifsud and Downer in the game? Yeah, I wouldn't ask him to sort of give me the names. I would just be wanting to know if they've made any progress in these areas. Because I know as the lead investigator, he's not going to disclose that, right? But I mean, he could give you some insight as to whether or not they're, that they've run into dead ends, or whether or not they have gained some information or what have you. So, but no, there's not a single syllable in that entire article about what Aldenberg told Sundance. So we can assume from that he told Sundance nothing, absolutely nothing, about where he is or where the Durham investigation is. And it's really a Barr's investigation more than, they call it the Durham investigation. It's really Attorney General Barr's investigation. And the reason I say that is because if you look at the charging document, at the bottom of the charging document on Kevin Kleinsmith, Durham doesn't describe himself as a special counsel or a special prosecutor or anything like that. He describes himself in the charging document with Kevin Kleinsmith as a special attorney to the Attorney General. Special attorney to the Attorney General. In other words, he's working directly for the Attorney General on this investigation. This is Attorney General Barr's investigation. Now, I realize he wants to have Durham there so that he can say, well, this is Durham's investigation. I appointed Durham to do this investigation. And therefore, it's Durham's investigation. It's not me, to take kind of the political heat off and not make it look like it's Barr going after someone. He appointed, just like he appointed Jensen to look into the Flynn thing. He's got John Bash looking into the surveillance, the unmasking. He's got Durham looking into, the general Spygate investigation. So, yeah, I mean, I understand. I get the politics of it. I get the semantics of it all. But it's ultimately Attorney General Barr's investigation. He's the one who's ultimately going to be either congratulated or ridiculed as to whether or not he will prosecute the criminals. Now, as I've told many of you for a very long time now, I give Barr and Durham the benefit of the doubt. That's as far as I can go. I can give them the benefit of the doubt. We don't know anything about Durham because he doesn't talk. But when you look at this investigation, you don't hear about SWAT raids, and I know, necessarily Barr wouldn't do it that way, but you would have search warrants. You would have other activities going on around the people who are targets, and you don't see anything. So I don't know what to make of that. Again, it's just an observation. But as far as Barr is concerned, I mean, we don't hear nothing from Durham, so we got to put him on the shelf. We just don't know. The only thing we really know about Durham is right after Horowitz released his report, he came out and made a very brief statement saying that he disagreed with Horowitz on whether or not the investigation was properly predicated. That tells us a lot. That tells us that Durham has evidence, or had evidence even back then. This is nearly a year ago. He had evidence that the investigation was not properly predicated, or he would not have come out and made the statement. Short of that, we just don't know. But Attorney General Barr has been interviewed many times by, various people who have asked him some fairly direct questions, and he's given various indications, including his most recent interview on Sean Hannity. So, we do have some things to go on from Barr as far as where the investigation is, because let's face it, it's pretty much crunch time. It's time where something has to move. Someone either has to shit or get off the pot. There's not that much time left. The election is closing in. But I will say this, as I have said many times in the past, I'm not necessarily counting on Barr or Durham. I give them the benefit of the doubt until they give me reason to believe otherwise. And my patience is running very, very thin. Because as far as I'm concerned, there's overwhelming evidence of quite a few individuals, at the very least, perjuring themselves, lying to Congress, and various other things. Even some things that Durham himself has pointed out in the Kevin Kleinsmith charging document. But what I will say to everyone is what I've said for a very long time. I am not putting my faith in Barr or Durham. I give them the benefit of the doubt. I hope they produce. I hope they do the right thing. I hope that they will. But my faith is in Trump. I just don't think that Trump is going to let the perpetrators get away with it, regardless of what Barr and Durham conclusions they come to. I do not believe that Trump, he just doesn't strike me as the type of person who's going to allow the coup plotters to get away with it. So I don't put my faith in Barr or Durham per se. I give them the benefit of the doubt. I put my faith in Trump, and it's because he has openly had no problem coming out and calling it a coup, saying it went all the way to the top with Obama, and all these sorts of things. Trump's made it perfectly clear that he knows what happened. And he's made it perfectly clear that he wants these people held accountable. So we know what Trump thinks and what his intentions are. And he has said in the past, I will not intervene. I could, but I won't. I'll wait and see what Barr does. And I think that's what he's doing. I think he's going to let Attorney General Barr either deliver the goods or fail. And I think if he fails, Trump will do something else. And I highly recommend he appoint a presidential council and assign attorneys to them and give them full powers, full prosecutorial powers. That's exactly what I would do if I were Trump. There's a lot of good prosecutors across the country outside of D.C. and that general area. Plenty of good prosecutors who are honest and who understand what happened and would actually do the prosecution. So that's what I would do if I were Trump. I would appoint my own commission, and I would appoint U.S. attorneys and put people on that commission to make sure that the U.S. attorneys are honest, you might say. So that's what I would do. But I don't know what Trump's going to do, but that's what I would do if I were him. But what I do count on is Trump. That's who I'm counting on to get to the bottom of this and hold the perps accountable, because I just don't think Trump's going to let them get away with it. And I think once he wins re-election and gets through whatever type of legal challenges I believe the Democrats are going to put into play, I don't think they're going to have much luck, because I think Trump's going to win by such a good margin that any attempts at a legal remedy to overturn the election is going to fail and fail quickly. So I know what the Democrats' plot is. It's to take the election into the courts and try to have the election overturned in the courts. But that would require the election be somewhat close. That's not going to happen. Trump is not going to be close. Trump's going to win he'll win bigger than he did in 2016, let's put it that way. So I don't think that the Democrats' plan is going to be work. So that doesn't mean they're not going to try. But that would be my position at that point if I were Trump. If it were me, once I get to the first of the year, I get to Inauguration Day, January 20th, I'm sworn in for my second term. At that point, if Durham and Barr have not produced something of significance, I just inform Barr that he can do whatever he wants with his investigation, but that I am going to appoint a special presidential commission. I'm going to appoint my own outside attorneys and my own people on this commission to get to the bottom of what happened. And he and Durham can play golf or do whatever they do. I would just ignore him at that point. And I would do my own thing at this point if I were Trump. That is assuming that Barr does not produce. But, we had this interview that Attorney General Barr did with Sean Hannity about 2 weeks ago. And we understand that was not a scheduled interview, that Barr's press person contacted Fox News and the Sean Hannity show and said the Attorney General would like to make an appearance on the show. He has something important to say. And, of course, we know what he had to say. He said a couple things. Let's go through just a couple things he said. First, he brought up to Sean Hannity, he said that he was appearing on the show because he wanted to let people know that there were going to be developments. And he said some of these developments will be significant developments. And he said one of those developments is going to be tomorrow. And it's not, the end all, it's not a big deal, but it is a development. But he said there's going to be significant developments in the near future before the election. That's what Barr said. Significant developments before the election. Now, we all heard him say that, and he knows he said it. So what does that tell us? Well, it tells us Barr knows. Barr knows exactly what's coming and when it's coming, at least in the near term. He knew that Klein-Smith was going to be pleading guilty, which he said wasn't going to be that big of a deal, but it was at least showing progress. But he did say that there's going to be a developments, plural, and that there would be significant developments before the election. His exact words, significant developments before the election. And he said that one will be tomorrow. It's not going to be a big deal, but it shows that the investigation's on track. So the Klein-Smith plea deal was described by Barr as a development, but not a major one. But he said, just prior to that there were going to be significant developments before the election. So if the development he was talking about happening tomorrow was the Klein-Smith plea deal, and it was, then we can assume that when he says significant developments, that he means more plea deals or charges before the election. That's essentially what he went on Sean Hannity and said. Now, I think it's fair to assume that he's not going to do this a week before the vote, or even 2 weeks before the vote, or probably not even 30 days before the vote. I think that would be his cutoff. It's going to look political regardless of what he does, but especially if it's done within 30 days. I don't think that'll happen. I think whatever Barr's going to do, he's going to do it. I think he'll do it before the end of September, probably earlier. And he said there would be significant developments before the election. So whatever's going to happen doesn't mean the end of the investigation, but there'll be significant developments, which would likely mean more plea deals or charges before the election. That's basically what he said. And that's what I'm watching for. And if he doesn't deliver, I'm going to be very upset. And I will probably no longer give him the benefit of the doubt. I'll be ready to push for the president to get involved, as he said. It'll be time for the president to get involved. It'll show that clearly that Barr and Durham are just not able to overcome whatever forces they're running up against at the DOJ and FBI. Because all the people who have to actually produce in this investigation work at the DOJ and the FBI. Many of them probably a part of what went down. I agree with a lot of people like Tom Fitness say you can't have these two groups investigating themselves. I think it's got to be done by outside people. But I'm going to give Barr and Durham the opportunity to prove me wrong. Now, Barr also said that evening on Sean Hannity that the American public needs to know what happened in 2016 and 2017, and that will be done. The American people need to know what happened in 2016, 2017, and that will be done. And I think he understands that that information needs to be before we vote in 2020, in November. I think he understands that. I think that's what he meant. He didn't specifically say that, but I think that's what he was referring to. Because Sean Hannity's question was a kind of saying essentially that. We have an election coming up. People need to know what the hell happened in the last election before we vote this time. And that's when Barr said, yeah, well, American people definitely need to know what happened in 2016, 2017, and that will be done. Okay, well, I'm holding him to that. So what are we holding Barr to? Holding him to the significant developments he said will be coming before the election, and also that he's going to make sure the American people know what happened in 2016 and 2017 before the vote in 2020. That doesn't give him much time. Doesn't give him much time. A couple more weeks. We also know that Barr came out and distinctly said there was spying. There was spying. He said that a long time ago in hearings. He also has said that it was not properly predicated, as did John Durham. So now he's told us there was spying and it wasn't properly predicated, which means it was illegal spying. He has also said that if there were crimes committed, they will be charged. He said that on Sean Hannity. So if launching a spying campaign and it's not properly predicated, that would be a crime, don't you think? I think so. And therefore, he said crimes will be charged. So if the spying occurred, it wasn't properly predicated, that would be a crime, and he said crimes will be charged. We should be able to take him at his word that those people who were involved in that will be charged. If we're just listening to what he says and putting it into the proper context, making clear what he says and what we should expect. If you look at the Kleinsmith charging document, you'll see in item number 5 on the charging document, it says that on August the 17th of 2016, prior to the first FISA warrant on Carter Page, certain members of the Crossfire Hurricane team were told that Carter Page was an operational contact from 2008 to 2013. Members of the Crossfire Hurricane team were informed in August of 2016 that Carter Page was an operational contact. That was 2 months before they got the first FISA warrant, as Durham points out. He's saying in that charging document that members of the Crossfire Hurricane team knew 2 months before they got the first FISA on Carter Page that he was an American CIA operational contact, meaning they knew he wasn't a spy, meaning that they illegally obtained the first FISA warrant. And of course the second FISA warrant, and of course Horowitz blew up the third and fourth ones, so now all of the FISA warrants were illegal. Those were all crimes. And what did Barr tell us? That if there were crimes that can be proved beyond a reasonable doubt, they will be charged. Well, if Durham has evidence, if he has the memorandum that was given to the Crossfire Hurricane team members in August of 2017, and he does, as he tells us in item number 5 of the charging document, that means Durham has evidence right now that those members of the Crossfire Hurricane team, and he knows who they are, knew that Page was not a Russian asset then, 2 months before they even got the first FISA warrant. The only question is, who were the members of that certain members? He used the word certain members of the Crossfire Hurricane team. Who were those certain members? I can almost be 100% sure that 3 of them were Strzok, McCabe, and Page. Loose Lisa Page. So those three for sure. They would like the top tier of Crossfire Hurricane. They would have definitely, absolutely would have known. Question is, did they share that with Comey, Priestap, or anyone else? Yates, or Obama himself? Who did they share that with? So there is no question that crimes were committed regarding the FISA warrants. And remember, the FISA warrants were illegally obtained to spy on Carter Page, and the purpose of spying on Carter Page is easily known when you can look at what information they collected from the Carter Page FISA warrants. I have to assume that John Durham, if he's even a half-ass investigator, or Mr. Aldenberg, or whoever's doing the investigation, I mean, you know, a rookie fresh out of police school, right out of police academy, would know that would be critical information that you'd want to see, is what was collected from the FISAs. And if it turns out that the information collected from the FISAs was more about looking at the Trump campaign in 2015, 2016, or anything around that, and it was not so much looking at Carter Page and these Russians, but rather it was looking at people within the Trump campaign, you will know that the true purpose of it was to have these FISA warrants as a window into the Trump campaign. And we all know that's the case. Okay, we all know it. It's just that you got to have the documentation to prove it. And I'm sure that's exactly what the documents will prove when you get the collections from the Carter Page FISAs. So there's no question there were crimes committed as far as specific crimes that you can lay out from violations in the federal code as far as how they obtained the FISA warrants, lying on the FISA applications, and all that kind of jazz. But it's also, why did they do it? What was the purpose? What was the motive for doing? Why did they lie to the FISA court to get warrants on Carter Page? That's where the conspiracy comes into play. And that's where the collection that they got from Carter Page comes into play. There are already serious enough crimes against certain individuals that those people should have already signed cooperation agreements to avoid prosecution. Whether or not that's happened, I don't know. But I do think this, and I'll tell you something else. You know, Barr was also on with Mark Levin. Now, I'm not a big fan per se of Mark Levin, but he is a good lawyer. He was in the Reagan administration, worked in the Department of Justice under Edwin Meese. They all know each other. Barr, Meese, Levin, they've known each other. It's going all the way back to probably at least the 80s. And, of course, on the show, Mark Levin didn't really press Barr too much on the Spygate stuff, but I can absolutely 100% guarantee you that off air, because we've heard what Levin has said off air, or we've heard what he said on the air, just on his program, when he doesn't have Bill Barr sitting there. And we've heard exactly what Levin has said. He calls it a straight up coup in the whole 9 yards, talks about how dangerous it is if the truth is brought out, and preferably before the election. All that he said. And he's a friend of Barr's, and he had Barr on his show. And while he did not discuss that with Barr on his show, I can assure you, 99.9% sure, that at some point before or during the show, when Barr's there to do the show, Levin had to have that conversation with Barr about, man, I hope you understand how serious this is. Barr knows exactly the ramifications of this. He knows exactly how serious this is. He knows if these people get away with this, that this country is probably lost. If they can get away with this, they can get away with anything and everything. They'll stop at nothing now. And it will empower them to go after Trump even more and probably try a legal coup against him if he wins re-election. And if for some strange, extraordinary reason the Democrats will be successful in cheating in the election and getting Biden elected, or selected rather, that would be the end of Barr. He would be fired on day one, and Durham's investigation will be shut down. So they know all this. But I still will give Barr and Durham the benefit of the doubt. I think that we are in the last couple of weeks. I think they'll have to act probably before the end of September at the very latest. And if in fact they do not produce, then I think Trump is going to have to get involved like he said he would. Again, Do not put your faith in Barr or Durham. We hope they'll do the right thing. But don't put your faith in these guys. We don't know what to think about them, right? We're guessing. We're hoping. Put your faith in Trump, and you'll be fine. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate, assuming there's some news to talk about. Thank you. Bye.